Hello, it's Cried here today with an update of my Hammer Knight build. By the way, the idea behind this build is applicable for both PvE and PvP. This is also a fairly simple build to play, regardless of the version you decide to choose. Alright, so there are some major changes. Let's start with the core of the build, the hammer. Thanks to the changes in patch 1.08, the club and stone club moveset is now as fast as the regular hammer moveset. Furthermore, the stone club now also has a big step in on the first hit. This is great because we used to run the hammer over the stone club, despite the stone club having higher AR, since the stone club was slower and also has a smaller step in. However, the hammer is indeed still a tad bit longer and also swings further in subsequent hits after the first light attack. It also has more horizontal coverage. Either weapon works for this build, but I'm going to be trying out the stone club, since, relatively speaking, it got a bigger buff. For those who have watched my first Hammer Knight video, you will know that I ran the Storm Stomp for its poise damage and poise reset, and if you poise break with it, you get a free light attack afterwards as a true combo. I also held a Flame of the Redmane's Ash on my dagger for an additional ranged option. However, this setup relied on the fact that it was far more difficult to reach 100 poise back in the days. With the poise changes and Flame of the Redmane's poise damage nerf, running Flame of the Redmanes can often backfire, especially when someone running 100 poise can just run through the flames and do more damage to you than the weapon art can deal. Therefore, we are going to ditch both of these ashes. With the hammer setup, the weakness was always the short range, which our Great Shield made up for, by allowing us to more easily get close to our enemies. With the buff to hammers, we actually trade alright when we can stick close to our enemies. Therefore, an Ash of War you have to constantly cast like Endure doesn't work that great because we don't want to stop and keep buffing. We're not too worried about trading, and Endure doesn't help us when our enemies are running away. Instead, we will be using Braggart's Roar for its buff. Braggart's Roar modifies our two-handed heavy and charged heavy attacks. But since we're running our hammer with a Great Shield, we only care about the buff Braggart's Roar gives, which is 10% physical attack, 10% all negation, and 10 stamina recovery per second. The best part about the Braggart's Roar buff is that it lasts for a whole 60 seconds. So, you usually only need to buff once at the start of the match to give yourself a trading advantage. And we're running Braggart's Roar over the Crackblade because we do need the additional stamina regeneration. In addition to using the extra stamina to sprint and stick to our enemies, one of the styles in which you can build the Hammer Knights now is using the Jellyfish Shield. The Jellyfish Shield has a nice weapon art that boosts your damage by 20% in PvE and 12% in PvP for 30 seconds. Furthermore, it only costs a cheap 9 FP. This buff does indeed stack with Braggart's Roar, allowing you to trade really well if you're trading hit for hit. Obviously though, compared to the Halictree Crest Great Shield that I ran in the first Hammer Knights video, the Jellyfish Shield is far inferior in its guarding capabilities, requiring even more stamina than medium shields like a Brass Shield. This is where the stamina regeneration comes in, and can help you more quickly regenerate your stamina after using or depleting it. Furthermore, since we're stacking two buffs, we're also expected to play more aggressively, so we will be guarding less. However, if you do prefer a more defensive style with lots of guarding, the Halictree Crest Great Shield is the stronger option. This is the level 125 build with the Jellyfish Shield. If you're running the Jellyfish Shield, either Vagabond or Hero would work, since you need the additional dexterity to meet the Jellyfish Shield's requirement. Otherwise, if you're running the Halictree Crest Great Shield, Hero is better. This is the level 125 build with the Halictree Crest Great Shield. At level 150, you have some spare stat points even after hitting 80 strength. I suggest just dumping them into endurance. It can even allow you to bring another weapon, like the Twin Bird Kite Shield for a parry, or the passive buff if you swap your shield to it when you're below 20% max HP, since the Jellyfish's damage buff carries over now, even if you swap off it. For me though, I decided to do Pulley Crossbow for a ranged option since we lost Flame of Redmanes. And yes, I'll be playing this character at level 150 cause I didn't reset my 125 Vagabond. This is the Halictree Crest Great Shield build. You can also adjust it for Pulley Crossbow if you want. For PvE, Especially if you rely on guard counters. You can hold a misery chord for the crit hits, and also swap a talisman out to something like the curved sword talisman. Let's check out some duels. Thought I blocked that, clearly didn't. A poison dagger on the offhand and more gods in the main hand. Okay, maybe I should have equipped my poison boluses. Okay, this is kind of obnoxious actually with the lightning spam. We'll get close and try to attack, just trade in. Okay, I think he's doing the lightning bolt, so I can't really bolus. Yeah, I should dodge. Oh, okay. Okay, poor dodges, it's fine. You know what, just YOLO in and trade, see if we can get it. Nice, roll catched. Halberds are going to be hard to trade, one hit to one hit. Our guard counter is relatively fast already, plus he was really aggressive, so I thought he wouldn't dodge, and it paid off. Okay, nice roll catch. We'll have to watch out for the frostbite. Roll the frostbite, okay. Carefully trade because we don't want to give too much HP. Halberd's guard counter is way too slow, he shouldn't have done that. Free time to just buff up again. And oh, okay, I missed the timing. I should have attacked, I think. It's fine. We'll attack here. Nice, roll catched. A fellow jellyfish shield user. Let's see how this goes. Oh, he's just using it for the buff. Okay. Actually, I think there's a lot more great swords and curved great swords than before, and because they do like over 133 poise damage, it's actually difficult for you to trade with hammer too. But if you trade carefully with your great shield, you can still win. Oh, thought I rolled that. It's fine. Okay, he can't do much with the curved great sword because, well, he doesn't have enough poise to tank one hit of our hammer. I definitely feel like this build will probably work better for my playstyle on Halictree Crest because I like to guard quite a bit when I'm using the hammer. But yeah, the jellyfish shield can give you raw trading advantage, so beating cross Nagis with a hammer. GG. He's being really aggressive. Counter this? Nice. He was being really aggressive. So I just took a chance and did a guard counter because we were gonna run out of stamina anyway. Okay, just attack. Chase him down. Okay, probably shouldn't have jumped. Our jump attack isn't that great. Just trade one hit for one hit. Even with his flaming strike buff, we can still trade one hit for one hit. Okay, thought I guarded the first one. Guess not, but we can do a guard counter there. Relatively speaking, I think we're more optimized here for one hit to one hit trades. Okay, messing up a lot. Oh, I was too slow there. I wanted to guard counter the jump attack, but I hesitated. Not looking good. We'll have to be careful. One more hit and we're dead. Let's see if our crossbow diverts his attention. I thought at least one of them would hit, but guess not. I accidentally did a backstep. Buff up. And then we're just gonna run him down. Our hammer light attack is faster than any of his spells. If he wants to trade this much with a melee, it's his own fault. And here are some bonus clips for my 2v2. I don't think this build is great for 3v3 because in 3v3 I usually like to have some AoE and ranged option, or at least stronger ranged option, so you can help cover for your teammates. Chase him down. Literally, we can just trade him with two-handed stone club. We don't even need our shield because he's using a dagger. Oh! Dragon Claw. Nice cover, but we can still go in. Last bonk. Nice. Okay, help our teammate. He didn't dodge, free kill. Oh, okay, I dodged late. Oh, getting wombo comboed. Oh, okay, nice. Stalemate? I thought we won that one, but okay, oh well. What? Wait, that did no damage, right? What? I think, lag or something? You know what, screw it, we can still run him down. Trading even with a UGS with our buffs. Oh, the bubble. Ah. Straight up trade it. Screw his weapon art. Nice. Just run him down. Can't do much. There we go. And don't forget to reapply your buffs. The parry didn't work, and that's a free kill. Wow, I know the bubble tracks, but I did not expect it to curve that much. And GG. Make him roll and roll catch. Block and keep attacking. Oh, nice roll catch, but we're better trading 1-1. And just go. Let's see if we can just block this. Yep. Not a lot of stamina damage from Comet, and we trade positively with our light attack. Okay, we gave him the chance to drink, but it's fine. Oh, our teammate can finish off. Yes, nice. And we'll help him finish off the other guy. Run him down. Catch, nice. Oh, okay, I should have dodged that. Ah, poor timing. Just attack. Stagger and keep attacking. Unga bunga at its finest. And we rolled the crits too. Perfect. Nice. I rather my enemies focus on me, so my teammate with the range attack can just go ham on them. Yep, it's better for me to do the tanking and just pressure them with strong light attacks. Nice follow up by my teammate. Recover some stamina before we push. do our range option. Okay, just trade this. Oh, slicer. Okay, well, GG guys. If you want to support my work, please consider buying my fantasy novel or donating to my Patreon down below. With a book purchase, you can also request a topic from me. Krite, signing out.